push DP out of Jubilee or block him from rising to power. Says he and head of state are only keen on economic growth and a unified nation. And we also have the top story here on the Star saying Murathe plots mass walkout from Jubilee. And on the Standard, same story. Uhuru farm on Raila turns gun on critics, and of course that story will be on page 8 on the Standard. But we'll take a look at what the Daily Nation has wrote in regard to that. Also on our top stories, we have Kenya earns 157 billion in tourism boom. We also have the story Amina defends admission rule as thousands join Form 1. Remember, that began yesterday across the country. On our top story, exactly the story. High numbers admitted on first day of Form 1 intake, but most schools say it's smooth. Now, CS Amina has promised new primary school books by next week. That is on page 2 of the Daily Nation. On page 4, we have the succession politics. President Uhuru Kenyatta tells Central Kenya, I'll develop all parts of the country. This is after, of course, the utterances by Moses Kuria. Now it says, I'll just quote, the war of Jubilee of words in the ruling Jubilee party escalated yesterday when President Uhuru Kenyatta told of the leaders accusing him of neglecting Central Kenya. This was during the groundbreaking ceremony of the 460 million Mama Ngina Drive Park regeneration. And of course, we also have on the Business Daily, our top story here, Prime Bank tycoon cedes 5.1 billion stake shillings. We also have Sudan scuttles KQ Israel flights, and doctors now reject Madison's order to use generic drugs. That is on page 4. Of course, we still have a lot here. Pay process to the aged needs review. Another discussion there of quite importance. It says the Office of the Auditor General wants the state to carry out a review of the payment process to the older person's cash transfer so as to identify major bottlenecks that lead to delay in releasing payments, and also improve the process for notifying beneficiaries on payment debts. But some of the other stories that are making headlines, of course, we'll be having them play on in just a few minutes. I would like to take a look at the story in terms of the schools reopening yesterday, and of course, CS Amina flagging off the release of textbooks. Let's have a look at that story.
Form 1 students from across the country have begun reporting to their respective schools. At State House Girls High School in Nairobi, 200 students were admitted through the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS. Education Cabinet Secretary Amina Mohamed was here to supervise the process, and she too admitted a few students. NEMIS has been discussed intensely over the past few weeks, with some alleging it was causing confusion, claims the Education Ministry has denied. The system can only be used by heads of schools and some education officers in the ministry who approve transfer requests.
Oh, these are issues that we'll be dealing with. I think at the moment we are taking all the data that is required. After the 11th, we'll be able to look at this data now and support the schools that need support. I mean, obviously every school will have, and especially the schools around the city, in the urban areas, will have more students than they had last year because we had bigger numbers that sat for the exams.
The Ministry of Education maintains that all students joining Form 1 should be admitted through the National Education Management Information System, as it is meant to account for all learners in public schools.
Admission of Form 1s will be completed by Friday this week.
Urging the sub-county schools as well as the private schools to quickly upload the information on registration and enrollment so that we can capture all this information in NEMIS.
Meanwhile, the distribution of books for the new curriculum, which is being implemented for pre-primary 1 and 2 and grades 1 to 3 and teachers' guides in public primary schools, is ongoing.
Tusome English Grade 1 course book, 1.5 million. Tusome Kiswahili Grade 1 course book, 1.5 million. Tusome English Teachers Guides, 30,000. And Tusome Kiswahili Teachers Guides, 30,000. At the same time, I appeal to all education stakeholders to prudently utilize the distributed materials so that they do not age before their expected lifespan.
The distribution of the competence-based curriculum books is expected to end on the 15th of January. Sharon Baranga, NTV.
Now, on the war on a graft, it appears to be a false start for the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, in the trial of NYS suspects. Now, the DPP on Monday dropped charges against 11 suspects in a fresh case that has been consolidated. NTV's Seth Olale reports.
The decision to drop charges for 11 suspects in the 468 million shillings NYS2 scandal is being viewed as a major setback for the prosecution, which had previously assured the Anti-Corruption Court that all the accused persons previously arraigned have a case to answer. Former Deputy Director General at the National Youth Service, Sami Mishuki, and Senior Accountant Rogers Nzioka are among the 11 who were set free by Principal Magistrate Peter Ooko following an application by the Director of Public Prosecutions. Other accused persons who had charges against them withdrawn under Section 87A of the Criminal Procedure Code include Simon Kani, Stephen Riungu, Josephat Njoroge, Lucas Otieno, Humphrey Odhiambo, Timothy Kiplagat, Charles Makau, Jackson Matengo Juma, and Bernard Masika.
Procedurally, if the matter is withdrawn as per the ones now who are no longer parties, I don't see any harm in that. So that by the time now this file is being taken back to the registry, it is marked as withdrawn under that section with those accused.
The prosecution, represented by Chief Prosecutor Hamisi Omolo and Prosecution Counsel Anne Gitau, told the court that fresh charges can still be preferred against the freed persons should there be fresh evidence against them. The remaining accused persons, led by former Principal Secretary Youth Affairs Lilian Omolo and former Director General Richard Ndubai, pleaded not guilty to 49 counts in the new consolidated case. The trial was adjourned to Tuesday. Two accused persons, Bernard Masika and Charles Makau, failed to appear in court. The dropping of charges for the accused persons comes as a huge relief for the suspects who have been actively in the case since September 2018. However, for the remaining suspects, they have to wait a little bit longer to determine their fate, since the DPP believes that they have a case to answer. Seth Olale, NTV at the Milimani Law Courts.
I thank you so much, Seth Olale. Now, the county government of Nairobi now only has 2 county executive members with long-term contracts, as the third one has thrown in the towel. Nairobi County's Education, Sports and Social Services executive member Janet Oko says her resignation was inspired by her desire to pursue other interests. However, sources at City Hall say that her decision was on account of the hostile working conditions at the county government, specifically a difficult governor to work with. Charity Mwangi has more.
An announcement, and that has to do with my resignation as the CEC in charge of education.
Oko's resignation has brought into focus a concern that had been raised by the Senate. Governor Mike Sonko's style of leadership has been one that has both been hailed and criticized. During his 1-year, 2 months role as Nairobi governor, he has unapologetically ruled the city with a show of an iron fist. Anyone who deviated from his wishes was quickly shown the door.
The people, you've kept them in a position where they live one day at a time. It's one day at a time in Nairobi County.
Can I respond to that?
No one knows when they'll be fired.
It's the same history of corruption and laziness, which I'll not condone. And I'll continue firing them. Any corrupt officer will go home.
While before the County Public Accounts and Investment Committee last year, Governor Sonko confessed to having his executive members on short contracts, which he said were meant to ensure that they deliver. It is, however, emerging that Sonko has been using contracts as a way of bringing his cabinet members into submission. Currently, 3 CEC members have 4-year contracts, and Janet Oko is among them. One county minister is allegedly on a 1-month contract, while the contracts of 2 others were not renewed. In April last year, the governor fired his finance CEC member, Danvas Makori. Soon after, the devolution executive Veska Kangongo was also serving in acting capacity in the health docket, was suspended alongside other officials at Pumwani Maternity Hospital. This was when she failed to support the governor's decision to fire the top leadership at the hospital after the alleged dead fetuses saga. Her predecessor, Haitan Majevdia, had also been fired not long before. One of the CEC members was sent home after 6 months, and sources indicate that he has never been paid his dues to date. This latest exit is that of an executive member whose praises reached the very floor of Parliament on account of her good performance.
Just complimented Mr. Janet Auko. Let me also compliment her. She's one of the most hardworking CEC members in my government. We renewed our contract.
The exits and murmurs at City Hall tell a tale that the governor has fought off before. Staff and those in the know of the ongoings at City Hall say he is difficult to work with, as he does not condone anyone who he feels will steal his shine. Though her exit was more gracious, her nervous laughter upon inquiring the reason why she was leaving was quite telling.
And I think
she, however, maintains that she is leaving to pursue other interests, terming her soon-to-be former boss as a reliable leader, albeit his high expectations.
We had a relationship over boss, you know, because really he's my boss. So there is that relationship where you'd want him to probably okay something that you're doing. You'd also feel that as his minister, you want to inform him. These are the steps that I'm taking. I would want guidance. So I think in terms of relationship, that is how I would say that, you know, we had a good working relationship.
Sonko is yet to replace his deputy after the exit of his running mate in the polls, Polycarp Igathe, who had inspired great confidence in the county government's delivery. For now, voices coming out of City Hall speak of an uncomfortable place to be. Voices of county employees who remain silent, largely out of fear. Upon his return from the coast, Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko will be faced with the responsibility of replacing his Education, Sports and Social Services CEC, a task that he has had to do severally during his time here at City Hall. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
All right, and nationally, President Uhuru Kenyatta is taking on his critics in the Mount Kenya region head-on, saying he will not be arm-twisted to develop the region at the expense of other parts of the country. A furious Uhuru read the Riot Act to the region's leaders, saying his mandate as president does not allow him to discriminate any region of Kenya, referring to his critics on the development agenda as washenzi. NTV's political affairs reporter Kennedy Mureithi with this report, as opposition leader Raila Odinga also says he was not interested in either joining the Jubilee Party or rocking it.
For some time now, debate on development or lack of it in Mount Kenya counties has dominated talk in that region and has found itself on the national stage through political leaders. So dicey has the situation been that MPs from the region held a 2-day meeting in Naivasha to discuss the matter. To them, the region has been forgotten and their efforts to get the president's ear have been unfruitful.
Hii mambo kazi yetu ni kupiga kura. Baada ya kupiga kura, maendeleo tunapatiana kwingine. Hiyo ujinga tuache. Adio ujinga tufanya nini? Hiyo ujinga tufanya nini? Kufungua maji kwingine. Kufungua barabara kwingine. Kufungua stima. Tukikuja hapa Kiambu, atino wala wako hena certificate ya johi.
Hii siasa ya kusema ati kwa sababu mtu ametoka pahali fulani ati kusema maendeleo itaelekezwa pahali fulani. We want a country where every single citizen is entitled to development regardless of where the leader comes from. Hiyo ndio siasa tunataka Kenya hii. Kwa hivyo hawa washenzi wawachane na mimi. Na hivyo ndivyo itakuwa.
Minutes after the president spoke, Moses Kuria took to his Facebook page to respond. He argued that Mount Kenya region was part of Kenya and needed development just like any other part of the country, and development was their right.
Tunataka taifa ambalo Mugiriama, Mdigo, Mukikuyu, Mujaluo, Mukamba, Mukalenjin, Musomali atajisikia hii nchi ni yake.
Opposition leader Raila Odinga, who accompanied President Kenyatta in Mombasa, stressed the point, arguing that development in the whole country was key. Raila also called on politicians to back down on 2022 campaigns, calling on those elected to concentrate on developing areas they represent.
Mambo ya 2022 itakuja. Na kikija kutakuwa na wanaume na kina mama ambao watasimama. Sio. Lakini sasa bado tuko 2019. Iko 2020. 2021, 2022, hawa jamaa tunasema patie sisi nafasi tuendelee na Kenya kwanza.
Mount Kenya's political class say their calling on the president to act was not informed by their disrespect to him, but pressure from residents of the region.
We know that Mount Kenya region contributes over 60% of our country's GDP. Yes. Yet only 20% comes back to its people.
Yes. At the same time, Raila has rubbished claims that he intends to rock the Jubilee boat and benefit in the process.
Raila anakuja kuingia kwa Jubilee, anataka kufukuza watu wengine. Upuzi mtupu.
These claims surface at a time the Jubilee party is being bogged down by a succession war that is threatening to tear it apart. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.
All right, and that will be part of our conversation this morning. And can see my panel has arrived. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you so much for making the time, and I hope your year has begun quite well. Quite interesting. Thank you so much for joining. Well, quite interesting remarks there you've seen from the president, from the opposition leader, and shots have been fired. I'd probably like to get your remarks on what has been said, and I'll start from Mr. Irungu Kangata, the Murang'a senator. Maybe you give us your take from, you're from that region. Has the Jubilee administration neglected the central region?
Thank you. Let me say there are issues. There's no doubt about it. There are areas that need to be improved. In particular, income. You find a lot of people in our region, they don't have sufficient income. In particular, coffee farmers. When you compare coffee and an industry like sugar, you see a lot of government intervention in sugar, you see a lot of government intervention in maize, for instance. But in coffee, you don't have any direct government intervention in terms of capitation. So we are left to handle it on our own. We no longer earn the kind of money we used to earn when we were young. Several people have been educated using coffee proceeds. That has been a persistent issue that has been raised. Apart from coffee, we have tea. Tea is also another area that people have been complaining. The earnings of tea are on a decline. Murang'a County, for instance, happens to be the county that produces the largest share of small-scale holder tea. In fact, it's the largest in the entire country. We have about 10 tea factories. Currently, when you look at the bonus that was paid last year, it has been on a decline. So those are issues that people have been raised in. Be that as it may, on the other hand, for me in particular, let me say, when I was a member of parliament for Keharu constituency, there were several projects that were given by the national government, in particular roads. If I were to name them, there are about 5 roads which have been made by Jubilee government for the last 5 years when I was a member of parliament of Keharu. In fact, it is on the basis of that platform I was able to seek for votes and I got elected to become a senator on the basis of what I had lobbied the national government to do in Kiharu. So there is work that has been done, which in my own opinion, we need to appreciate. This idea of just attacking Uhuru Kenyatta, I think, is unfair. But of course, there are other areas that we need to intervene. And I think, to the best of my knowledge, the president is trying. I know there is a task force which was constituted by the president to look at the coffee problems. They are currently preparing what are called regulations, and which, by the way, it is Parliament which has started that process. So yes, we need more, of course, like any other Kenyan. But on the other hand, there are problems which we must continue as leaders of that region raising.
Right. And welcome, Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, to the conversation. Well, we're talking about the shots that were fired yesterday by President Uhuru Kenyatta. I'd like to get your sentiments, Jakaya Miduo. What is your remarks on the same?
Well, I thought the president was saying the right things. Really, when he says it should be that there is development everywhere, regardless of who is our leader. But I said on this forum before, when Dibal was our host, I said that there will be no 2022 unless we sort out 2017. You know, really, it's about Ruto's.
They have been sidelined in terms of development in respect to that.
I was going to talk about that. Yeah, because I think the two go together. I think in what that they don't want Ruto to be, let's just talk about it. They don't want Ruto to be, they don't want Kikuyus in the Rift Valley to be victimized because Kikuyus will not, don't vote for Ruto. And I thought that was interesting because it was actually answering the president. I have seen all those things in the media. But Kikuyus, to a larger extent, I agreed with Kimani Wamatangi a few months ago when we were talking about this issue of constitutional reform. And for us to give resources based on the census, real census. And Kikuyus are right. Let me just tell you. Because I even think as a Luo, we are disadvantaged. I think the lawyers are thoroughly disadvantaged. Why would Turkana County get more money in devolution more than Kakamega County? Why would they get more money more than Kiambu? Because this is the thing they are not saying correctly. And I think Jubilee messed up when they elected a certain caliber of MPs. And I think ODM really thoroughly messed up when the caliber of people they chose to talk for the people. So the issues are not coming out clearly. But I think when Kikuyus say they want development, I think they mean it. Because it is not working. Why would we have one of the world's largest slums in Nyeri? And why would that not be a sign of poverty? So we must go back as a people and relook at our constitution. There's a myriad of issues that we must look at. And I think the time is now, the time is here, and I don't think it is good to demonize Kikuyus for saying we are not getting our fair share. Because most industries are here in Thika, most industries are here in Kiambu generally. But they are not getting their fair share. I'm on their side.
All right, definitely. Okay. Yeah. So before we get Matangi's remarks on the same, Otiendo, you were the first here. You watched that report there by our reporter Mureithi. Would like to also get your remarks on the same.
Okay. First of all, let me congratulate Kenyans who made it to the new year and wish all of us a happy new year. And as we always popularly say, a prosperous one. One that is so prosperous that no section of Kenya will complain of being marginalized. But to come to the remarks of my colleague and friend Moses Kuria, I think there are remarks that are unfortunate, they are unfounded, and they are untrue. For starters, the constitutional structure that we have places this primary role of allocation of resources on Parliament. And that is where we sit. So if anyone is to complain generally about misallocation or inappropriate allocation of resources, either in terms of sector or in terms of region, then the primary forum for complaint is Parliament. We changed the structure in such a way that the presidency does not control the entire budget as was before. And so for any member of Parliament, including myself, to complain, therefore, is an admission of our collective failure. But secondly, it is factually inaccurate. If you were to say that Kiambu is marginalized, then I would love to hear the example of the place that has been advantaged in this country. Where is that place? Certainly it's not Rarieda. Certainly it's not Game. Certainly it's not Mandera. Certainly it's not Lamu. I think that if you were to rationally look at this, outside of Nairobi, the only other place that has been greatly advantaged in this country is Kiambu, both for political reasons, for historical reasons, and for geo-positioning reasons, because of the proximity to Nairobi. And the Senator of Kiambu is here. I'm sure he will be talking to us about this. If you were to look, and this is why I say it is inaccurate, the development and in terms of historical allocations for the last 55 years, the per capita income in Kiambu is one of the highest in this country. And if you are to look in terms of infrastructure, in terms of electrification, in terms of road networks, in terms of access to, to health and water, I don't think there's anywhere else that rivals Kiambu. Even if you are to talk of subsidies, like my friend Senator Kangate is talking about, and you compare sugar and tea and coffee, you will be surprised that historically, you will not find any time that now the sugar farmers are being subsidized. The subsidies have always come at the level of the companies, and it's only at the level of failure to pay money that is due to the farmers. There is never, as we've seen with many other sectors, a situation where the subsidies are given in large quantities to the farmers. Here is a situation where the sugar farmers have not sought any money that they've not worked for. Their problem is that they've worked for the money, they've supplied the sugar, and they are not paid. That is not the kind of subsidies you're talking about. So factually, it is inaccurate. But thirdly, and more importantly, I think it is unfortunate for any leader at the national level to suggest that because the president comes from my constituency should get a lot more than any other constituency in this country. That perpetuates the very thing that we've been trying to fight. The very thing that we are trying to fight, so that people get to know that you need to elect a president who will serve the country, not a president who will serve the tribe and that region. Right. So for all those reasons, I think that the remarks are inaccurate, they're non-factual, and they're inappropriate.
All right. And before we get Senator Matangi's remarks there, let's just listen in and get a better picture of what was said.
Mimi lea kuzunguka kila kona ya Kenya na kazi ya maendeleo, kutoka Kisumu mpaka Mombasa, kutoka Moyale mpaka Namanga, tukifanya maendeleo kwa kila mwananchi. Hii siasa ya kusema ati kwa sababu mtu ametoka pahali fulani ati kusema maendeleo itaelekezwa pahali fulani. We want a country where every single citizen is entitled to development regardless of where the leader comes from. Hiyo ndio siasa tunataka Kenya hii. Kwa hivyo hawa washenzi wawachane na mimi. Na hivyo ndivyo itakuwa. Tunaelewana wenzangu? Tunataka taifa ambalo Mugiriama, Mdigo, Mkikuyu, Mujaluo, Mukamba, Mukalenjin, Musomali atajisikia hii nchi ni yake.
Kazi yetu ni kupiga kura. Baada ya kupiga kura, maendeleo tunapatiana kwingine. Hiyo ujinga tuache. Adio ujinga tufanya nini? Hiyo ujinga tufanya nini? Kufungua maji kwingine. Kufungua barabara kwingine. Kufungua stima. Tukikuja hapa Kiambu, ateno hora wako hena certificate ya.
That was said earlier on, and President Uhuru Kenyatta did respond to that. We also saw Moses Kuria took on his Facebook post, and he responded saying President Uhuru Kenyatta was on point, 100% true, but Mount Kenya is actually neglected. Omatangi, Senator.
Yeah, good morning, Zainab.
Good morning.
Yes, and accord me the opportunity to say good morning to our viewers and to my colleagues and wish them a happy new year. We've not met as our first show, and it's also interesting that we are starting the year and the show on a high.
On a high political note. Yes,
because I mean there's been all this political talk, but we have to acknowledge two things. That first, irrespective of what anyone says as an individual, as a person elected to any office, we still have a country to take care of. And we, when we think and talk, we must talk in the context and speak in the context of who and where are we as a country. Now, I would want to just first start from where my good friend Otiende Amolo finished. And you see, Zainab, the right of the people of either Kiambu or the central Kenya region or the entire of Mount Kenya region to air their views and express what they think or feel, that is their right, and it is protected in the Constitution. They have a right to say, this is how we feel. But then you also look at the comments by the president, and it's good that you've played that clip. He's also right, and as you've said, he's spot on, because that is our law, that is our constitution. And I think, in my view, this only boils down to the question of who understands or who knows what is happening or not happening, especially as far as development is concerned. And I'll start from here. You see, the point that was noted by Jacoyo Midiwo is true, has been true, and until we correct it, becomes and is still a major issue. That is the issue of how have resources in this country been allocated to various parts of this country in as far as our law is concerned and the number of people in that place. And no matter what you say, for example, and I can give an example of Kiambu, if you look at the resources that are normally sent to Kiambu, and the facts are there, actually you printed them in the Daily Nation, I think that was on last week on Thursday. There was a whole chart there showing how much goes to Kiambu, how much goes to these other counties, and on what basis. You see, resources that are going to counties right now are based on the census of 2009. That record, for example, in Kiambu says that there is a population of 1.6 million people. And the reality of the matter is that currently in Kiambu, there are 3.1 million people. So that is double the number. So no matter what you send there, no matter what you do, it is going to be inadequate. And that is why I have been forthright and steadfast in this discussion, that the first thing we have to get right is to have a credible census in this country to help government allocate resources according to who is where, correctly and rightfully. And once you have had that activity and that discussion settled, then everybody in this country, and that is now what the president was pointing at, that particular fact that everybody will receive, feel and get what they should be able to get properly, fairly, will be settled. As a matter of fact, because If you have got 3.1 million people in Kiambu, you've got 1.5 million people in Moranga, you've got 800,000 people in Mandera, you've got so many number of people in that is how resources are going to be distributed. And so, because, you see, we have to move away from this notion that it is the prerogative of Wamatangi to go and give resources to the people of this place. That is not true. It's not what our law says. That is why we have two laws. We have the Division of Revenue Act, and we have the County Allocations of Revenue Act. And this is where resources that goes to counties are derived from. Now, if you want to speak about, for example, the Constitution, if you want to speak about projects, for example, you only need to run a chart. And I want to challenge all government departments and ministries that they should be able to clearly educate, publicize to Kenyans precisely what is happening in every part of this country. What have they done in the Mount Kenya region? What have they done in the other counties, such that it is seen, is it fair or is it not fair? Lastly, because I don't want to extend the debate, there has been comments, various comments. You've played the comments by my colleague and constituent or county mate, Moses Kuria, and other comments by the leader from Nakuru. And I think we have to calibrate what we say based on the outcome we want to get. I do not think for purposes of the leadership and politics of Mount Kenya region that it helps us or it will take us to the next level if we resort to the strategy of either humiliating, insulting, probably whatever you may want to call it, directly to the president. Two, we should be able to articulate our issues properly ourselves. We have been given the platform to say what we want to say. And my last comment is, if you ask me, have the people of Mount Kenya right now, as a member of that community, gotten a fair share of what they should get? I would answer, the projects are there, but they haven't gotten what they should get. Reason being that the amounts that are being sent to that region are way below the number of people in that region, and so it is not possible at all with the resources that are there to satisfy the numbers. And once this has been corrected, once the law has been put in place, once the exercise has been done to ensure that the people who are correctly in that region are counted and given the resources that they should get, and then we say to our leaders, especially our governors and senators, for that matter, and members of parliament, that then now manage, correct, and institute the projects. Zainab, let me tell you, in that area, if you wanted to count the number of projects which have been instituted by national government but still uncompleted, there are many. There are many. And I think I found my colleague here, Senator Kangata, on the discussion. The truth of the matter is that there are projects that have been started, but are they enough? The answer is no.
All right. And that's your take. And a raging debate, and hand in hand with that, is the 2022 succession politics that played out and has been playing out for quite some time. And this is a question not from me, but from one of the viewers, and it has been asked quite a number of times. Can the Jubilee Party withstand the political storm? I'd like to get your remarks on the same. Senator Irungu, it appears the Jubilee House might be in chaos with the disquiet over the 2022 succession politics. Is Jubilee Party in a crisis?
Let me say no. Of course, there are people who are expressing their opinion. It is a constitutional right for everyone to express his or her opinion, and therefore I don't see any problem in Jubilee at all. There was an official, my friend Mr. Murathe, who had raised some issues. Yes. He has resigned on his own motion, so there's nothing wrong. Yes. Because
Murathe, the former immediate vice chair of Jubilee, has argued that the presidency comprises of the president and the deputy. So if the president retires, so should the deputy. I don't know if that argument holds any water, Jakayo.
No, I don't think Murathe is right in that regard. I think, to be fair to William Ruto, I think Ruto needs to be allowed to pursue his political ambitions. You know, in all this, there's even talk of Uhuru being the Prime Minister of Kenya. So why do you want to be unfair to William Ruto? But we need to pat out William Ruto, pat him out. He is mentioned in every corruption. He is mentioned everywhere. You know, we want to know who is going to be our president. And I don't think he has my vote personally, because his name is everywhere in the direction we don't want to go as a people. Number two, let me just make a last comment on this Moses Kuria thing.
All right.
When he says kazi yetu ni kupiga kura, they never won the elections. Raila won the elections. In fact, there was even the 26th, which he mentioned, of October. Out of 19 million Kenyans registered as voters, only 3 people voted. 3 million people voted. So when you go out there in a Christmas party or a New Year's party and talk so carelessly, he knows he's wrong, but he is inciting to the public. Number 3, I think, let me advise my 2 panelists on my left that the reason for the handshake is to move the country forward, not to take it back. So I agree with Wamatangi that you don't talk carelessly. You must choreograph what you're going to say and say it correctly. Because I think Uhuru is that healthy. He looks a bit fat because Raila shook his hands.
Not the other way around.
That is the truth, not the other way around. And I don't think Raila went to Jubilee. Raila said yesterday, Uhuru said we talk. And Raila was magnanimous enough to say, let us talk and move our country forward. So this insinuation that somebody won the elections, that even Uhuru won the elections, is not true because he didn't. He also had an opportunity. No, can I? May I? He never won it. We are here because the situation, the rules of the game are wrong. Hence, the call for the constitutional reform. And that is where I want to be. I am not a member of parliament.
All right.
Otienda is, and these 3 gentlemen, I mean, these other 2 gentlemen are. I am not. I know the rules are not wrong. That is why I'm paying over 8 million shillings to the courts for trying to seek justice. Can we just allow ourselves to correct our system so that after elections, people don't kill each other? After elections, we are not so bitter. We can do that as a people. We can do that as a people. Let us go the direction of reforms, and we can do that as a people.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Can I interject?
Very briefly, before we move on, yes.
Well, it's a long interjection, we don't mind, on 2 issues. Number 1, the remarks by my colleague here of saying that they were rigged out of the last election, in my own opinion, are the reasons why, which make people in Central Province, particularly the common mwananchi, still stick with Ruto, because he has this notion ODM guys have some grudge, which in my own opinion, they fear that, yes, it appears there are some people are telling people, hey, we go to the Raila side, but with this kind of attitude, Ruto guys will say, you see, these guys are taking you to people who have some grudge, give them that position, and then they start saying, okay, you have been rigging from us, they are going to turn against you. To me, if he's a real Raila or supporter, I wouldn't probably take such kind of a stance, because it is going to alienate. Because now, surely, 2017 is bygones. Let bygones be bygones. Right. But anyway, I don't mind. Anyway, it's your opinion. Being not strategic, I don't know how that suits you. And my final point is a little rejoinder to something that was stated by my colleague, Mr. Otiende, concerning GDP. You know how GDP is calculated? GDP is usually an aggregate of every person's wealth. So you'll find a situation where if I have a lot of billions, but this other gentlemen have, let's say, they are very poor. The aggregate, the average of the GDP will be quite high, notwithstanding all that wealth is being made by one person. I say so to try to counter that notion that GDP of Kiambu is quite high. Yes, I may agree with that, but on the basis of very few individuals having huge amounts of wealth, whereas vast majority of the other people being very poor. And therefore, when you do an average, the average goes up. So, in fact, that explains why for a long time you had seen an evolution of a youthful movement that was quite violent. And to me, that came out of that notion of income disparity. Those are issues which we need to address.
Right.
And we some people having wealth in that region should not mask real poverty in that region called Central Region.
All right. And just to get back to the conversation on the 2022 politics, I'd like to pick your legal mind, Otiende, on the constitution that was articulated there by the former immediate vice chairman, David Murathe, on the presidency and what should be done. I'd like to know, is it okay? Is it legal in terms of what he said, that once the president and the deputy have retired, they all go together?
Thank you. There are three issues. Before I come to that, the first one is the one that my brother, Senator Wamatangi, spoke to, about allocation of resources. And the second one is the direct one you asked Senator Kangata, which he made sure he talked the minimum he could about the trouble in paradise. And the last one is that legal interpretation. Let me start with the question of allocation. I don't agree with my brother Matangi at all on the question of allocation, and especially the question of allocation to counties coming in when we are discussing the president and his performance. First, because Article 203 of the Constitution is clear in terms of the factors to be considered. Then Article 217 makes the entity to determine the basis of allocation is the Senate. Every 5 years, it is the Senate to determine for these 5 years. The primary factors are the following, after considering the very many factors listed in Article 203. And therefore, if population is to be the primary factor, it is up to the Senate to prioritize it and not any other entity. But having said that, I also do not agree that population can be a factor and not any other, or more than any other. There are several factors that are indicated in Article 203 for very good reasons. Population is one of them. There's the question of the size of the county. There is the question of the developmental needs of the county, because the truth is, since sessional paper number 10 of 1965, some parts of this country have been advantaged more than others, and therefore their developmental needs may be different. There's then the question of the performance of the county itself. How is the county performing? How much revenue is it able to generate? There's then the question of affirmative action. There, until the 2010 Constitution, there are parts of this country which, if you are going to, they will ask you, how is Kenya? I remember when we were writing the Constitution, and we were going to some remote parts of Turkana, and we get to a place called Sugutamarmar, where then the signage is still there that you are now entering the Northern Frontier District. And you go all the way there and they ask you, how did you leave Kenya? And it's not a joke. It is a fact that they don't feel part of Kenya. So all these factors must be considered. It cannot just be population. And we must not degenerate the discussion into saying you cannot give money to cows and camels. Nor can you degenerate it into responding by saying you cannot give money to where there's jiggers. That is really bastardizing a very serious discussion. Let us focus. The last Commission on Revenue Allocation adopted the principles that were adopted by the Senate and used them. It is now the opportunity for the Senate, having clocked the 5 years, to relook into that, that process again. But it cannot just be population. And lastly, if population was the reason to cry that Kiambu is being marginalized, then we must all cry. Because the last census, misstates the population for all the places, including Rarieda or including Siaya. So when then we do the proper census, we will get to know what the real population is.
All right.
Is there a fallout in Jubilee? Well, that is for my brothers on my extreme left to say. All I can say is that it is clear there's trouble in paradise. When the president says, stop campaigning for 2022, wacheni kutangatanga, and the deputy president every weekend leads a barrage of my colleagues tangatangaring all through the country and saying, we are not campaigning, we are bringing development, that is a problem. When the president says, it is important to restructure, and I agree with him, our executive, so that this winner take all must desist. Otherwise, we are in for a problem. And the deputy president immediately says that in his view, there is no need to change anything in the constitution. It means there's a problem. When the president and Raila shake hands and constitute the Building Bridges Initiative with 9 points to be looked at, some of which are likely to result in constitutional change if they are looked at properly, and the deputy prejudges that by saying that there is no need, then it means there's a problem.
Right.
The extent of that problem, it is them to tell us. Wamatangi has previously regaled when NASA issues were coming in and they were claiming that NASA is no longer together. So I think today is his opportunity to start and tell us really, really where Jubilee stands. The deputy president, let me say this. First, what David Murathe said on Saturday is not entirely new. If you look keenly, you will see that on 1st of October last year, I made similar sentiments, except that I did not say that the deputy president is legally barred, but I said that it was appropriate that he bows out with Uhuru. And why do I say that? So
there are no legal restrictions anyway.
The articles, there are 3 articles to look at for those who want to understand this matter. And this is a matter that you can choose to understand legally and constitutionally, or you can understand it politically. While legally and constitutionally, there is no strict bar that stops William Ruto for vying for presidency, which is why even when my colleague Ouda brought some motion in the National Assembly, I was one of those who opposed it. And the motion was to bar William Ruto from vying. And I said that you cannot bar him. But it was my view, and it still is, that his candidature is politically inappropriate. Why is it inappropriate? First is the concept of what we've called a collective presidency, and that is a legal reality in the Constitution. If you look at Article 130, if you look at Article 131, you will see that unlike the previous constitutions, the executive authority in this country now, in 131, says the National Executive of the Republic comprises the President, the Deputy President, and the rest of the Cabinet. And then 131, 1B, says the President exercises the executive authority of the Republic with the assistance of the Deputy President and Cabinet Secretaries. So the truth is that under the Constitution of Kenya, it's no longer a one-person affair. It is a collective affair. It is the president and the deputy together with the cabinet. That is what we call a collective presidency. So there's a sense in which a deputy president now has more say than a vice president did in the previous constitution. But the second bit is that the reality of the Jubilee administration has been one where William Ruto acts not so much as a deputy president, but more as a co-president. And that has been the reality in terms of even appointment of cabinet secretaries, in terms of, because if he wasn't, a deputy president would have no authority to go anywhere in this country to purport to be opening development projects, because the deputy president has no individualized direct authority. So in a sense, while Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta will have enjoyed the presidency for 10 years, the deputy president will have enjoyed a co-presidency for 10 years. And in that sense, it is inappropriate. So there are reasons why, in my view, it is inappropriate for him to vie. Some relate to him as a person. One of them, I think Jakoyo spoke to. There are so many people who seem to have so many issues unresolved around him. But there are two other reasons. I think it is inappropriate to be in a country of 44 ethnicities, which has been ruled by 2 ethnicities for 55 years, and to have an arrangement where, again, for every other 10 years, you have an arrangement of it oscillating between the 1 and the 2. It becomes a source of instability in itself. It is a situation where you now need to widen the possibilities of those who can lead this country beyond the 2. It is also a situation where William Ruto, and given the reality of what has happened and the way the Jubilee has run the structures, I think it's appropriate that when Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta leaves, William Ruto should leave. But under Article 148.8, what he stopped from doing, and this needs to be understood, anybody who wishes to associate with William Ruto cannot do so on the hope that they can negotiate anything, that he can go for any other position other than the presidency. He is barred from being a deputy president for more than 2 terms. Strictly speaking, legally, in terms of the letter, he is not barred. But I think in terms of the spirit, it is inappropriate.
All right. And of course, I'd like to get Senator Wamatangi's response to that, and especially that apparent MOU that was there. But let's take a very short break here on AM Live. We'll be back with the conversation. Remember, our Twitter handle is at NTV Kenya, subsequently at Zainab Ismail. And of course, you can also get maybe your Twitter handles. Yes, at K Wamatangi.
Kangata Irungu.
Kangata Irungu.
Midiwo J.
Midiwo J and
at O Amolo.
At O Amolo. Okay, let's take a very short break. We'll be back. joining us. You're watching AM Live, and the discussion today with the panel will be surrounding the 2022 succession politics. And Senator Mutangi, you were to respond to issues of trouble in paradise.
Yes.
Is there trouble within Jubilee?
Can I Zainab, start by first clarifying very quickly on the point that was made by Otiende Amolo on what I've asserted, and still hold that view, that allocation of resources has a lot to do with the current process of reviewing the formula for allocation of resources. First, I did not say that population is the only parameter that should be applied. It is one of the parameters. But I said, and I stand with that view, that the weight applied to that parameter of population must be, and actually even in the current arrangement, population is still weighted higher than all the others. It's at 45%. But the question has been, is that 45% adequate? And my argument is simple. If you use all the other parameters, for example, poverty affects people and human beings. So once you apply a percentage, let's say 18% to poverty, you are still affecting the livelihoods of those people to make them better. If you're talking about the expanse of a region, the land mass, whatever you allocate, those resources will still affect the people. It's supposed to improve the lives of those people. Even that quote, my brother Otiende Amolo, on the session of paper 10 of 1965. It's whatever its implications was, but it's also important for legal scholars like yourself also to enlighten the people with the truth that indeed that session of paper was then inundated within a few months of its tabling in Parliament, and it never had any effect in the long term. That's the reality of our history. But however, my position is, and my point was that because we rely on the census of 2009, which affected wrongly every part of this country, including Rarieda. Once you get it right, whatever resources are correctly and rightfully due to the people of Rarieda or Kiambu or Machakos or Mandera will go to them as per the facts. And the facts are what will come out of a credible census. And I think that was my point, Otiende. The Senate has the duty to have its vote and debate on CARA, that's the County Allocations Revenue Act. But the people who propose those parameters is the Commission on Revenue Allocation. And right now, they have already advertised for public participation, where every member of the public can go and air their views. I hope and I believe that part of what we are saying is public participation for them to realize that there is a lot of cry around the country. And if they don't get it right, this will not end easily, because at the end of the day, people must get their right. Now, lastly, or second lastly, is on this perceived trouble in paradise. And I want to say...
Perceived.
Yes, I want to say to my good friend Otiende Amolo, there is no trouble in paradise. The only thing that there is that there is a lot of, heated debate, good debate, healthy talk. And in some cases, I would say, a misunderstanding by a few, a view that is held by one as a personal opinion or an individual opinion binds the many by virtue of its pronouncement. And I don't think that is right. Because we have a constitution as Jubilee. We have got a pact with every party that is in Jubilee. And let's remind Kenyans that Jubilee comprises of so many parties as of today. And so what we just need to do is, and I would say that to my colleagues, and I have one here, is to make sure that we are careful when we are propagating and discussing our business of every day. And remembering that Kenyans gave us the mandate and the responsibility to run the affairs of this country for the next 5 years. So we cannot afford to be irresponsible. And whatever people say or do, we must remember that the president, on behalf of the rest that campaigned with him, took oath to serve this country. And so once we let a few positions held by probably individuals or political persuasion, then they then blind the bigger picture or the bigger mission. It is unfortunate. And I want to say, in as far as I'm concerned, the debate discussions have been there. Some of them I hold them as individual opinions of people. They don't trouble me. But I take it a little more seriously when especially elected leaders then arrogate themselves that responsibility to go all over making pronouncements without reference or without discussions or consultation or consensus. And that is what starts brewing trouble. And so let me take the opportunity, because you gave it to me, to say to members of Jubilee, especially the elected leaders, that you must stop, think, and listen before you speak. I mean, we have a responsibility to Kenyans, to this country. They trusted us with their vote. And Jakoyo, you are wrong in every aspect of your assumption that Jubilee or the president did not win the vote of the year 2017. He won it fair and square. And let's not go to that debate, because it is closed constitutionally, legally, and in every respect by our courts of law and by the process of election. And so what I would just want to urge my colleagues and everybody today is for goodness sake, we're in the year 2019. We've just begun. It's only 1 year since the election. As far as our constitution is concerned, we have got another 4 years to answer to the promises we made to the people of this country. And that's what we have to go to do. In this, about this debate on the handshake and whatever, we believe, personally I do, that handshake was intended to mend the differences that we had as communities in this country, and that we can have a better future. If then, or for any one reason, it would have any other insinuations that it is intended to block or to make it more difficult for either an individual or a group or a community to access and pursue their ambitions, either to hold an office, then that would be wrong. I believe in what has been said by the president, by Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, that what they just want to do is build bridges for a better country. As far as the intentions, the ambition and the work of, for example, the deputy president, he has a duty to carry out as an elected member of the presidency to serve this country. And it would be wrong if I or anyone would try to stand in his way and tell him, don't go there, don't say this, don't do that. If I am saying it, if the other person is saying it, he also has a right to do his work. And as long as we let everybody serve in their position, I do not think that this created battles or tension, for that matter, by a few, not the many, would eventually have.
So what you're saying is there is no implosion within Jubilee?
No, absolutely.
Even with the timings of this discussion?
Zainab, if I as Wamatangi and Kangata here and three of us or four of us make statements here, I mean, we are talking on behalf of people who cast the vote for Jubilee, which was voted for by millions of Kenyans. So that does not amount to either an implosion or to either trouble in paradise. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. For Jubilee to have initiated the handshake, it means there was trouble already. I said on this forum, sitting on this bench, that by the end of the 5 years, there will be no Jubilee or ODM or this NASA, all those things. It happens in Kenya every 5 years. And now, as messy as Jubilee is, NASA is probably worse. But I want to tell my friend Wamatangi that if he won the elections, why did only 3 million people vote in the rerun? Where were the rest of the 16 million Kenyans?
No, they had already voted.
No, yeah, because you are stealing the vote. You are voting for them. Let me just tell you, the reason why we want this referendum so much is because things are wrong, systems are wrong. And the reason why Ruto kept saying he will rule us until 2032 is because he thought he took power using the wrong systems. I also thought he would take that power. We won't let him, because what we are talking about now is how to secure the future of Kenyans. And many of us here now, we are old enough, we can exit. But what about the grand and the grandchildren of our own? We cannot let somebody assume that theft of votes can guarantee power, because it will not. And the president is right. He's saying this issue of winner take all is not good enough for us. That's all we are saying. Can I talk? You guys were talking and I was listening. Why are you behaving funny in the new year? Well, what I've just said, Kangata and Wamatangi, you have gone around issues. You have not talked about issues. You see what Murathe is saying. Murathe is telling you, I disagree with him on the fact that there must not be assumption of office without going to an election. Because how we elect our president in a presidential system is direct vote. He doesn't have the votes. You people must use the issue of October 26th to say that only less than just about 3 million Kenyans voted. And that's all the votes you have in this country. The rest is us, and we must tell you.
You know, the point.
Yes, Senator.
No. Yes, can I comment?
Yes.
Why are you letting him in?
Because I'm not speaking.
Allow him to respond.
Well, my point is, on one hand, I disagree with him. His idea of keep on happening on what happened last 2017 to me is neither here or there. It's not even strategic. Be that as it may.
To who?
Well, to whichever cause which I know you subscribe to. I know it's not strategic. But on the other hand, I agree with your conclusion that we need to relook at the Constitution. Yes. That one I agree. And the reason why I belong to that school of thought is because since 1992, every time we go into a presidential elections, the people who lose, they always take an issue, except for 2 elections. In fact, 1 election and 1 referendum result. That is, in the year 2002, where the gap was quite huge. The person who won, I think, had about 60%. The loser had about 30-something%. There was no disagreement. Then we came to the referendum of 2005. Again, when you compare the people who won, they won with about, is it 58% or about 60%? The people who lost, again, they had about 40%. There was no disagreement to that result. So meaning it appears when it's come to presidential elections or key decision, we need either to have what is called a supermajority, but not 50+1. Otherwise, you may create what is called a binary.
I think we're digressing from the issues that we're discussing in the morning.
No. I'm trying to reply to his argument. I want to support his argument that it is true we need to relook at the Constitution. That one I agree, because we need an all-inclusive system. That one, in any event, by the way, even for those who support William Ruto, I think it is also to their own selfish interest to support a relook at the Constitution. Why? One of the problems William Ruto has to think about is who is going to deputize him. And if he fails to nominate a Kikuyu, the support he is currently enjoying in that region may dissipate. But again, if he nominates a Kikuyu, then he will not be able to have what is called sufficient cross-ethnic support. So he is in a catch-22 situation. So therefore, it serves him well if he was to support the idea of expanding the executive so that he is able to have what is called a more inclusive coalition as he goes to face his political enemies, as opposed to the current situation that is obtaining now, where it's only 2 major positions that seems to be quite attractive to lure votes. So I think, and again also, when you look at what other countries do when it comes to societies that are ethnically divided, some countries usually go for something that is called constitutional democracy. For instance, let's say Lebanon, Northern Ireland. Other countries go for something they call centripetalism, that is electoral incentives that try to moderate politics. So, but the current situation that is in Kenya, in my opinion, is not suitable for an ethnically divided society like Kenya. So therefore, to that extent, in my opinion, as Kenyans, we need to look at the constitution. However, to me, that should not mean that we also kick out any person. Personally, from where I sit, we must also appreciate William Ruto is also a bona fide leader in this country. And therefore, in any new arrangement that may come there, I strongly believe that he can also join the handshake group.
I agree. And I actually think, because he cut me off, I actually think that Ruto's survival depends on whether he supports the handshake or not. But I don't think William Ruto is the right man to tell Kenyans not to go for a referendum. Because this constitution that he's trying to protect, he's the one who led the opposition to it. We were told by Kibaki and Raila that 20% was bad. Why are you not letting us, if it was work in progress, why are you not letting us talk about the 20%? And the 20% is largely about the executive structure. 20% will largely be about distribution of resources. And so I see Rungu's problem because he's struggling. He wants to be on both sides of this issue. but let me tell you, my brother, you have been a senator, you have been in parliament for 2 terms. That should be enough for anybody who is reasonable. Like I was there for 15 years. What we need to do is to leave a better place where minorities don't feel intimidated, where Kenyans don't feel intimidated by the so-called large tribes. Because I can tell you that if you take the numbers of Kikuyus and Kalenjins and you can take that to the bank, you are in the minority. The rest of us are majority. That is why you needed Raila, because otherwise you would be ruling us absolutely. But you're not leading us absolutely. We need something for all of us. We need the Somali guy from Garissa to feel safe. We need the Rendile to feel safe. And we can do that as a people. So what we're talking about is for national discourse and a proper one. What is so annoying, and I agree with you, what is so annoying about talking about it? I spend a lot of time in Malindi nowadays. You go and see the Giriamas, how they live. Why must somebody in Kiambu or Kakamega or Siaya be more important than a Giriama? We need to talk about this thing. It pains to talk about it, but it takes great leaders to talk about it. And this Kenya is not about Raila and Uhuru. This Kenya is in our future. After all, Uhuru is completing his term. He is doing so well now that he is saying, let us change the system. He is being our leader. And let us support him.
I think the issue would be, Jaco, if you ask me, and I'm sorry to intervene because I'm sure Otiende has a few things to say on it, but I just wanted to let you know that I do not think that it is correct to project the assumption that there is either a part or a side of Jubilee that is afraid of a referendum. There isn't, by the way. I mean, if it gets to a point whereby Kenyans decide through the proper process that the best way forward, which, as you are saying, is one of the most attractive or very attractive options, then we have no reason to fear. And by the way, either way, for example, we started ourselves in Jubilee recognizing the importance and necessity of having every Kenyan in. So that's why we collapsed URP and TNA and invited all the other parties. When we went for the elections in 2017, we were a massive, more than 20 parties, for purposes of ensuring that there is inclusion in the leadership of Jubilee. So if then it would boil down to having a referendum then to ensure that we expand those positions, now who would be afraid? I mean, let me ask you a question. why would, for example, there be a referendum? Who would bar Ruto from running for president in an expanded dispensation? Who would bar him from being the prime minister, and if that was the most powerful position? Nobody. I mean, if that would be the assumption that you know, probably his side or his team would be afraid of that. I mean, why wouldn't he work with everybody else? And like Irongo says, probably it would even be better. But let's also remember, and that's how I want to end my intervention, Zainab, that we have agreed firmly, ourselves as leaders, that really it is a major disservice to this country and to Kenyans if we prioritize and we make the topic of 2022 elections and the campaigns the major discussion now. It is wrong. It will be deceptive. It is very bad by leaders like ourselves who have been elected barely a year ago to dominate every discussion and preoccupy this country with a discussion about 2022 and campaigning. Let's ask the real questions about what was said and what was promised to this country and by the people who've been given that mandate for the next 5 years. And at the right time, then let's have this discussion. But you know, every time when you start to move the wheels of development or getting things done for Kenyans, then you find, and it's so unfortunate, actually, even now, and that's one of the issues I'm picking even with some of my colleagues in Jubilee, that we are deviating from what we said. We have agreed that let us serve Kenyans. That's why we got re-elected in 2017. We were not elected because we were making a lot much more noise or better theatrics in politics. Actually, if anybody would have carried the mantle that time on campaign braggadocio and hulabalo and talk and theatrics, it would have been NASA.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we campaigned on a platform that we're able to reform this country and do real things. We can't change now and become what we said we are not. We are not.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me comment on all this.
Yes, and on the same as even as you comment, you know, there's a lot of feedback, and I'll just mention one. At Abdallah Mdambo saying, the politics of betrayal are not new in Kenya. It was started a long time ago, starting from Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga. And that was part of the discussion.
As far as I have always known, David Murathe is the vice chair of Jubilee. To date, I don't know who is the chair. Maybe you will tell us who the chair of Jubilee is. But we all know that for the longest time, when David Murathe speaks, Jubilee speaks. From where I sit, when you're in a plane and the captain says, we are in for turbulence, it is not for you to question that, because it is the captain who knows. When you're in a ship and the captain says, we are in for a storm, you better believe there's a storm. So when David Murathe speaks, I believe him. That is all I want to say on that matter. But more than that is what else has not been focused on. I think it's in the headline of the Star, and he also said it on Saturday during the burial of Kefa Tuju. That is not just a question that he personally believes that William Ruto is inappropriate to be the president of this country. He said that. Forget about the law. But the reasons why he said that, he must know very well, because he's been the leader. But he also says that moving forward, there are possibilities of realignment in terms of different political parties. And it appears that even the institution known as Jubilee might not be what to talk about in future. I think that's where we should start focusing on. So for me, I would say nothing more on that matter. On the question of who owes who a political debt, I also heard him say that there was never any MOU, and that if anybody has, they should show it. Again, Senator Kangata, Senator Matangi, you might educate us on that. But it is true that in this country, if you were to talk in terms of political debt, then it would go back very far. And by the time you get to William Ruto, you'll have paid so many debts, so many debts, that I think he would rank number 5 or 6 or 7. So I don't think that forming it in terms of owing political debt is a very wise thing, because then there are many other debts, you know, like Chinua Achebe says in Ovokonku, that if your debt is so small and then you came to Okonkwo demanding, he will tell you, you see, that long line there, that is the debt of Obu. That other one is, now yours is number 7. So wait, let me pay all those debts before you come to this. Now, lastly is on the Constitution. I think in this panel, we might not have that discussion a lot because I think we are more or less agreed on the principle of the need to relook certain aspects of the Constitution and the need particularly to relook at the question of the executive structure and even of the legislature. And those are very fundamental provisions. And so perhaps at a future debate, we might start engaging in what is it exactly, because I think we agreed on the principle. The only thing I need to say about it, and I've cautioned on this, is that we are on 2019. The process of any fundamental alteration or change to a constitution takes at least 2 years. That is my experience. In terms of formulating the issues, in terms of educating the population, in terms of the processes. The Building Bridges initiative or any other initiative that is focused on looking into these issues must use 2019 as the year to introduce all those proposals so that they can be discussed, so that they can be effected. Otherwise, there is the danger of introducing them too close to 2022, which then would be a disaster in itself. I think the earlier we have all these discussions, the better. But having said that, I think now I would rather we also talk about other aspects like like corruption and the question of prosecution by the DPP, if that is something else.
Of course, we'll definitely get to that once we get some time. I know Senator Kangata as well as Senator Wamatangi want to respond to probably some of the issues you've raised. I'll start with Senator Wamatangi.
Well, yeah, thank you, Zainab. I just probably just want to educate because he asked for the education. And to tell him that the party leader of Jubilee Party is Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. The deputy party leader is William Ruto.
Now we know.
And now he knows. And Rafael Tuju.
That's not my question.
Rafael Tuju we have a party leader, and then we have your
who is the chair of the Jubilee Party? That's the question.
You know, we had the Secretary General playing that role of combining that Rafael Tuju, and then we opted to have our party leader. That's our best position, and the deputy party leader. That gives the party a better position. And for any other references or any other work that you may want to be done, you can refer to me. Now, anyway, you know, on that principle that you've said, I think we all agree that there is an importance to take a good look at how do we move forward as a country, and especially on the question of equal representation of our people, of our communities. I don't think that we have a big issue about that. If indeed we have to have that discussion and it boils to a referendum, nobody would per se be going to say, can we look at a structure or a formula that would use to better include all of us, most of us, in leadership, and especially ensure that all of us continue to feel better that we belong to this country. I don't think we have a problem with that. The only challenge will be that if we then release this discussion and that project with other, side baggages, other intentions in there, whereby we know that we are leading this process, so that at the end of the day, then Kangata will not run again in Murang'a. Or a certain individual, for example, if it is the deputy president, if it is the president, if it's another person, if it's Wamatangi, that you are doing it for purposes of either barring somebody. Now that then would lose the whole thing. But if it is done fairly, squarely, what we are saying is we want to have a better country. Nobody has an issue with that. Actually, as most of my colleagues have said, it was widely acknowledged in 2010 when we bequeathed ourselves this constitution, that we still had a lot of work to do. Zainab, let me remind our viewers this morning, by the way, in the entire of the last session, if one was to take issue by issue, point by point of all the issues that were raised by Kenyans that require to be relooked at that, in that constitution, from the expenditure on running government, to representation in parliament, to equal opportunities, to two-thirds gender rule, to the position held by the churches. All those issues have been issues that Kenyans have felt greatly required to be looked at in the constitution. So there is a lot of neat work that can be done. The challenge always is when politicians take the lead and then political interest then overweighs every other interest of Kenyans. I think that's usually the challenge. So if we can run away from that, then we are going to have a very good discussion, a good referendum, and then we'll be having a better government and a better country.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Senator Irongo, so, you know, there's a question here of, and it has been raised here severally, in terms of the time between now and 2022. There's a lot of development that needs to be done within that specific time. But some are asking, why is the president not speaking on these issues that are facing the ruling party?
Like which one?
The issues on succession on and the Tanga team and the Kieleweke team.
Well, for obvious reason that for now, President Uhuru Kenyatta is more interested in his legacy. He's not interested in politicking. He's not going to vie again. So therefore, for him, he has to look at the issues that are going to endear him to Kenyans post his administration, and those issues are the ones which have been morphed into a concept called Agenda 4. And it is bad or it is wrong that it's unfortunate politicians are refusing to heed his call that they concentrate on issues of economy. There you see a lot of talk about politics, a lot of, I don't know, we are going to block this one, hey, this one is not fit to become our leader. To me, that is wrong. Uhuru Kenyatta focuses about development, the so-called Agenda 4. He is articulating that agenda. Of course, he has also brought in another new agenda, which is quite important for this country. The idea of a handshake, that is, you bring everyone together to feel you are part of the government. I think that's also something that people are crediting him for. That is political development of this country. You know, Kwame Nkrumah once upon a time said, "Seek ye first political kingdom, and everything shall be added upon thee." So I see his decision to bring Raila Odinga was based on that philosophy, that yes, it is true, I want to achieve this thing, but without everyone feeling as if he is part of the government, you cannot be able to realize some of these dreams. But be that as it may, you can't expect Mr. Kenyatta to start talking about Ruto or succession or 2022. He is above that. He is now currently focused on assisting Kenyans, ensuring Kenya is a new place, and I want to congratulate
Despite
him.
the enormous responsibility he holds as the leader of the party?
No, those are political issues. No, he can't do that, surely. You know, one, you must understand under the Constitution, a president is a symbol of this country's unity. So he may make some pronouncement, which instead of bringing people together, they may continue fueling fire to those factions. Of course, as a politician, we appreciate what is fueling those divisions. He knows people continue planning to succeeding. People continue meeting at night, people to strategize. That is a reality of politics. But him, as a symbol of this country's unity, he must be above the fray. And I want to congratulate him. For now, I would urge politicians to heed his call. We talk about Agenda 4. I wish the discussion was on that. But surely, politicians will keep on scheming and make us forget the key issues that affect the common mwananchi.
All right, Jaka, even with that being said, and with issues being raised in terms of, you know, political debts and political betrayals, do you think the Deputy President has the acumen, has learnt the art of getting to the right track in terms of leadership in this country?
Well, we are in the 21st century. we are going to have to pat out anybody who wants to be our leader, because it is affecting too many of us. I don't agree with him in terms of him opposing us keeping, I mean, when we keep on making our laws right for our future. But I think William Ruto, to his credit, has the energy. He has acquired enough wealth that can make him play the politics of the day. I just don't think it is the right time for him to be our president. I also do think that we need to have many people. We need to figure out how to let most of these people that are permeating our political space, they need to leave. Really, I mean, even the second liberators, it's always good to retire. So it's good to accommodate them. We need to donate the next 5 years accommodating the Kalonzo Musyokas, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Wetangula, all these people. We need to accommodate for the next 5 years, just for their ego and for the sake of peace, so we don't fight again after the next elections. I was looking at some tweets the other day where Kalenjin gentleman said how they will cut the Luos if Ruto is not the president. And I'm surprised they're not even arrested. What needs to happen, I was watching it on Twitter, I don't want to mention his name, but I thought that is really below the 21st century. That we don't need to look for blood to determine our future. I wanted to say this though, that I am happy that Irungu and Wamatangi are agreeing that we are on the right path. I just want them to talk to the Moses Kurias and all those people. Let us move forward as a country. Let us take advantage of this handshake as a people to improve our future, to determine our future in a way that no Kenyan will feel disenfranchised again. And that is what the president was talking about. So I want to encourage the Kikuyu politicians to take the other side of politics, because it is their only opportunity. For us, where I come from, we are not threatened about anything, because we are always poor by the system. But they live in the Rift Valley, we don't.
All right.
So what we need to do as a people is to take advantage of an opportune moment. And I want to encourage my brother, Deputy President, that he could play positive and move us forward as a people, or he can remain negative and go nowhere, because I don't think Kenya is ready for that kind of thing. I think we have an opportunity. Lastly, let me just tell my friend Irungu that GDP is not a function of wealth, it's a function of expenditure by individuals, by businesses, and by the state. So it's good to give facts right when we talk on national television, so that when we live here, people know. And our state is not spending. Like when you say the president is about development, you cannot, when you have borrowed 5.6 trillion shillings, what is left for us to spend in terms of development? I am supporting the president, but I want him to make about turn so that we can properly invest. If you could build Thika Road using 220 million shillings, billion shillings, you could have built many more when Jubilee took power.
All right.
And that is how we are going to judge the deputy president.
All right.
And I'm saying when the campaigns kick off, we will unpack him. We will tell Kenyans, because he was part of this shared presidency, like Otiende says. If it is felt, you cannot be part of a government that can authorize importation of sugar, that can increase tax on fuel on the same day that Ghana zero rates VAT. Ghana is 3 hours away from Kenya. Yeah, what is in Ghanaians that is more special than us? So let these politicians not do us so wrong.
All right,
When did you stop being a politician?
Well, I don't think he has said he has stopped. He's just talking with those others. In seeking to educate me, my brother Matangi has actually exposed something more serious and ended up supporting me. He has actually exposed that Jubilee does not have a chair. Because to refer me to the party leader and the deputy party leader is not the question we are addressing.
There's one called Nelson.
Wamatangi, wait. Every party has its leader and its deputy leader. Even us, we have our leader, Raila Amolo Odinga, and the deputies. But we still have a chairman who is known. The point I was making is that if there's a chair for Jubilee, so far he or she has been unknown. And the person who has been holding that mantle is David Murade. And I think we all agreed on that point. And therefore, the admission you inherently make is that in David Murade taking this position and walking out, there's actually trouble in paradise, even if you've chosen not to see it. But that's fine. Secondly, I think on the question of the deputy president, I wish not to comment any further because today in this panel, we don't have any ardent supporter of the deputy president. So we might be flogging him one-sidedly. If Senator Kangata or Senator Matangi are in support, then they're not saying it. And therefore, I wish not to speak any further on it.
In support of what?
I said if.
In support of the deputy president?
Yes, in terms of possible candidature. Then come out clearly and say it so that we can engage robustly. Because we seem to be, otherwise we're in danger of looking like we are all flogging him. So I don't want to say anything. The only thing I want to say.
Who has flogged him?
The only thing I want to say, we have said.
No, who?
No, but that's not the issue I'm raising.
No, you have raised that.
In this panel, Senator Kangata, we usually have colleagues like Dr. Halwale, Senator Cheruyot, who clearly come out. So if you are, then clearly come out so we can engage. We don't want to appear to be engaging one-sidedly.
Yes.
But the one point that I need to make, which Jacoy has just mentioned, is that no matter what other debates we have about 2022 and whether we should have them or not, the one thing they should not be based on is blackmail. We should not have any candidature of anyone saying, unless you support us, there will be trouble for your people in the Rift Valley, whether they are Kikuyus, whether they are Luos, or that unless you support us, there will be trouble for your people in Kisumu or in Kiambu. We cannot have that, and we must not allow that. And unfortunately, some of the political rhetoric, including by my colleagues in parliament, are starting to go that way. That is what cost us the 2007 post-election violence that nearly brought this country to smithereens. And the issues, the underlying issues in this country are yet to be resolved. And therefore, that kind of talk that borders on support me on the basis of blackmail is one that must be stopped at all cost. That is all I want to say on that matter.
All right.
So maybe, Zainab, because Otiende has said it, and maybe it's important for it to be understood. What do we think about the candidature of William Ruto in 2022? Okay, I had already made my point that I'm not a fan of discussing the politics of 2022, but because he has brought it to the table, I can put it. The deputy president himself has been very clear and very loud. He's been saying, let us do what we have to do right now as Jubilee. Let's get to work. When we get to 2022, we'll deal with 2022. It would be wrong to assume a different position. But personally, and I believe, but Kangata has the opportunity to say it, but I say it for myself. I have been very clear. When it comes to the opportunity, the latitude accorded to the deputy president by our constitution to pursue his ambition, to hold any political office in this country, he is unfettered. He cannot be stopped by anyone. And any attempt to do that either politically, either by a change of law, either by any other process that would be abandoning him, would be wrong. He has to have his opportunity to claim any position he wants to do, like every other Kenyan. That's the point. And you see, the kind of support that personally I choose to give all the time is a logical, sensible, factual support. You know what I absolutely refuse to do is to be a loudmouth who does not use his head when you're articulating on issues that you know will affect our country and our people in the future. And so, if for example, at one time I was to have an ambition to run for any office, and then you would tell me that I can't run because you don't like me, or because you think that I come from an area that you don't like, I mean, I would absolutely go on the rampage. I would refuse to let you take away my right. And to that extent, that's what I've been saying. We have work to do between now and 2022. We will do that work. I have just said a few minutes ago that Kenyans trusted us and gave us the vote.
Right.
And then that's where the deputy president stands. He is not only the deputy president, but also the deputy party leader of Jubilee. When it comes to his ambitions at that time, when the run is on in 2022, he will have and he should have unfettered. Nobody should stand in his way. And of course, all those of us who believe and on the weight of what he has done, plus any other candidate who will be on the ballot, then we'll make that decision like Kenyans will do.
All right,
Yeah.
I'd like to quote someone here. It was an opinion published by a Kenyan on one of the local dailies, and he says, "I write as a concerned Kenyan regarding the debate on the politics in the country. My issue is with the players and with the effect on the president's desired legacy, development, and unity of the country. There should be no games of telling the deputy president not to play politics while having an open field for all the other declared and, in quotes, non-declared candidates. President Kenyatta has only 2 years to deliver the Jubilee Manifesto, which returned him to power and also attain his legacy pillars. He cannot afford to be distracted now. But the display of arrogance is worrying. I urge the president to control his close friends, not to attack the deputy president who is within the Jubilee party and desist from abusing his deputy." You see, Kenyans are wondering, with the divisions, even beside the Jubilee, you are attacking the deputy. Doesn't this create an idea of, disunity, acrimony, a ruling party that is in problems?
Well, first and foremost, the president has not attacked his deputy.
Not the president, but close allies.
Well, when it comes to power, there are people who are usually who surround you. Some of them have real or imagined power. If you are referring to Mr. Murathe, I think he has resigned from the party. So he is no longer in the party. And again, surely, the president had no power to gag him. And to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Murathe said in express terms that he is not representing the views of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Those were his personal opinion. That is what he said. So this idea of trying to conflate issues, trying to perceive what Murathe was saying is something that represent the opinions of the president, to me, is unfair. I think the position of the president when it comes to 2022 position has been broadly and repeatedly expressed by himself. He has said, no, let us ignore these issues. Let us concentrate on development. That is my agenda. I'm not interested in discussions on who is going to become the president in 2022. And again, as to whether he's going to support deputy president or not, those of us who are in Jubilee, our position is clear that President told us that he supports his deputy. He has not changed that position. So to that extent, even us who support both the president and his deputy, we have to await further directions from the president. So therefore, for me, for instance, my position is I am standing with the position of the president. He has not changed it. And therefore, we can't really discuss that issue.
All right.
As regard with the current politicking, the truth is, we need to watch what we say as leaders. There are several instances where that people have talked negatively. As a result, that has tended to inflame passions. And there's a concept that is called ethnic outbidding. The idea of ethnic outbidding is where politicians try to appeal for support in their ethnic group by ratcheting up a hostile rhetoric against other ethnic groups. And once that process commences, it tends to be what is called a demagogic ethnic arms race. That is, I try to outdo my fellow person so that I become more popular, and therefore I tend to go to the extreme. And that process, more often than not, it leads to either chaos or something that is very negative. And for seeing as if that process has now commenced, you see leaders now wanting to become popular by attacking other ethnic groups. And if the process is not checked, I fear that 2022 may turn out not to be a very good year. We may have a situation where people may as well fight against each other. So for me, the danger signs are already there. And something that as leaders we need to sit down and see what we can do. And to me, that explains why I'm somehow supportive of proposed constitutional changes, because if we can get our act well, probably there's a way we can change our institutions and somehow redress those divisions which are starting to emerge.
All right. Jakayo, even as you wind up, maybe your closing remarks on the whole political issues surrounding the country right now.
Well, I don't, the senator says he sees dangers. I don't see dangers. I don't think we are badly off. I think we are engaged in a discourse that will guide us in the right direction. I am not sure, Mr. Irungu, that Uhuru's silence means support for Ruto. His silence may just be that speaks louder than words. It is because Jubilee, in its deputy presidency, must convince Kenyans that what they did in the last 10 years. I can tell you, I was there when Kibaki took power. I watched Thika Road being built. I watched the economy move from 220 billion to over $1 trillion in the hands of Kibaki. And I have watched Jubilee take us from 1.2 trillion debt to 5.6 trillion. And I've seen it being stolen. So you can't convince me as a Kenyan that Jubilee has been good for our country. And therefore, its deputy cannot be our next president, really, because he has to sell for us a record. You must run using your record, even as a member of the Senate or a member of Parliament.
All right.
Coming from CI, we will be asking Otiende Amolo, what have you done?
All right.
In 4 years, we want to know what is it that we must vote you back for.
All right.
To me, I think that is the direction we need to be taking our country.
All right.
I know that all these issues being raised about the legality of Ruto's candidature and all that, I am opposed to anybody violating the rights of the deputy president.
All right, thank you.
But as far as the presidency is concerned,
all right.
Hana kura yangu.
All right, Otiende, your closing remarks.
If you can't stand the heat, then avoid the kitchen. And that is in reference to the article you read. The essence of deputizing, in fact, literally, to deputize is to sit in for, stand in for, cover for, fill in for. You must be persuaded by the views and position of the person you are following. And the moment you are not, then your option is to resign or leave. And therefore, if President Uhuru Kenyatta says that I do not want the 2022 talk, no one can say that he should give the deputy president space to campaign. Because the deputy president must follow him. That's why they were elected together. That's why he's the deputy. And the moment he believes that they're not in tandem, like has happened in many countries, then he must just resign, so that then he can have his individual views, you know, like anyone else. Anyone else who's not in there, then is not obligated to follow the president's, you know, views, because they are not their deputies. They are free to do whatever they want. On the current situation, first, it is my hope that the Ministry of Education will streamline this Form 1 selection. Yesterday, I got a number of complaints in some parts of persons who have been told they would go to this school, and when they go, then they reach the school, they paid the fees, they bought everything, then they are told by the school that actually the system shows you are supposed to be in another school and not this one. Now, such things are demoralizing and very unfortunate for the parents. It demoralizes the parents, it demoralizes the child, and that kind of confusion. But more importantly, moving forward, there are three things that are lying ahead of us. There's the question of the census, there's the question of the limitation of boundaries, whether it's of constituencies or of counties, and then there's also the question of possible alteration of the constitution, including a referendum. We must quickly put all these things in order and in their perspective way before 2022.
Thank you. Senator.
I want to close my remarks by probably referencing to what Jakoyo said there as he closed. And really, it's about what we are fully aware ourselves as Jubilee, that we have made promises to the people of this country, and the people are hopeful. And no matter what we say as politicians or do, at the end of the day, there are expectations by Kenyans that we will have to make better. And the only one area we don't agree with you, Jakoyo, is that you do not see or do not feel what Jubilee has had an effect on in this country for the past 7 years. That indeed, that there is work that has been done that has changed the lives of your people. It may not be all rosy. We may not be yet there where we are. But steps have been taken, that we have done things that have changed the course of this country. And what we have to do, Zainab and our viewers this morning, is to keep our focus. And that's why I said in the first place that I get troubled when I find that politics now becomes center stage for all of us, when we are still miles away from it. And that's why I would want to urge all of us and everyone, and especially in government, which is Jubilee, that let's not lose our focus. Let's make sure that our eye is on what we say to the people that will deliver to them.
Thank you so much. Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, Irungu Kangata, Muranga Senator, Jakaya Miduo, former GEM lawmaker, and Otiende Amolo Arieda, Member of Parliament. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. And this is where we wrap it up on AM Live. Thank you so much for your valid company and engaging a discussion. The conversation continues online. My name is Zainab Ismail. Have a good morning.